My parents gave the $75,000 college fund that Grandpa left for me to my sister, Emily, for her business. I was so upset that I took legal action, but I ended up getting kicked out. Now, the truth has come out, and things are going badly for my parents. I, 18 years old, am going through a really tough time, but honestly, life has never been easy for me. My parents and my sister, Emily, have made things hard for me. I have an older sister, Emily, who's 24. She has always been a problem in my life. Since I was little, my parents treated Emily better than me. Because of that, I never had a happy childhood. Emily wasn't mean to me, but she always took advantage of how my parents treated her. I can't really blame her for that. She's the firstborn, so my parents favor her, but I'm their daughter too, and I know some parents have a favorite, but that's fine as long as they don't make the other child feel left out. My parents made me feel unwanted. I mostly had to wear Emily's old clothes because they were still in good condition. I played with her old toys too, because they didn't want to buy me new ones. I remember the only time I got new clothes was at Christmas, and that was only so my parents wouldn't look bad in front of others. Emily would get a lot of presents, but I would get just one set of clothes, shoes, and accessories. If I complained, my mom would say, "Don't worry, you'll get Emily's stuff next year," but it was always secondhand. As a kid, I accepted this, but as I got older, I got upset about it. My parents told me we didn't have enough money for new things for me, or they grounded me when I complained. I don't ever remember my mom asking me what I wanted to eat. It was always about Emily. If it was a holiday, the food was what Emily liked. Once, I refused to eat and left the dinner table. I was grounded and had to do the dishes for the whole week to make up for it. It's exhausting to talk about, but this is how it was. And you know why my mom treated me this way? It's because of her own childhood. She was the older sibling, and her parents spoiled her younger sister. Mom felt she didn't get enough attention, so she decided to give all the attention to Emily. By the time I finished elementary school, I was so upset with my parents and Emily that I started spending summers with Grandpa. He was the only person who really loved me. Grandpa didn't like my mom very much because he could see how she treated me. Maybe that's why he always supported me. When I finished elementary school, Grandpa invited me to stay with him on his farm. It was the best time of my life. He gave me everything I wanted: new clothes, dolls, toys, video games, everything I couldn't get from my parents. I loved being at his farm. It was peaceful, and I never wanted to leave. When high school started, I begged my parents to let me stay with Grandpa. They didn't mind because it got me out of the house. Grandpa needed help, and I needed to escape my family. In my junior year, Grandpa got sick. He called everyone together and read his will. He gave the farm to two of my uncles and left $150,000 to my dad. Out of that, $75,000 was meant for me to use for college. Grandpa made me promise I would go to college. My mom wasn't happy because she didn't get the farm or the property, but Grandpa had already helped my dad pay off his debts with his share. When I started my senior year in high school, Grandpa passed away. It was the saddest day of my life. I had to move back with my parents, and it was awful for both of us. As graduation day approached, I asked my parents for the $75,000 Grandpa left me for college. That's when everything went wrong. Every time I mentioned the money or college, my parents ignored me. Finally, I asked, "Where's my money?" That's when they told me they had given it to Emily for her business. I was furious. That money was meant for my college. They said I could wait a year because I was too young to go to college. I argued, how can I be too young when my classmates are going to college? When I kept pushing, they asked me to wait a year so they could pay for my college. I told them, why can't Emily wait a year to start her business? I can't wait. I'm trying to figure out what I can do to get the money back. Any advice? Update: things have gotten worse. My parents asked me to wait another year. I didn't agree, and I kept asking for the money. They got angry, calling me selfish. Now, Emily is telling everyone that I'm jealous of her business. It made me so mad when my cousin told me that Emily was spreading lies about me. I told my mom that if they don't give me my money, I'll tell everyone that they went against Grandpa's will and gave my college money to Emily. Mom was furious and said, "If you want to go that far, you better pay rent and buy your own food. We're even for everything we've done for you." I couldn't believe it. They're still taking care of Emily, who's 24, divorced, and has a child, and they won't give me the money Grandpa left for me. I've always gotten good grades, but my parents have never been proud of me. Meanwhile, their golden child, Emily, has caused them a lot of shame, yet they still support her. I didn't mention much about Emily earlier. While I was living with Grandpa, Emily got pregnant by her boyfriend. By the time she found out, it was too late to do anything about it. She had to tell our parents, and although they were disappointed, there wasn't much they could do. Mom, being very religious, made Emily marry her boyfriend, even though neither of them wanted to. Emily's boyfriend didn't want to marry her or take responsibility for the baby, but Mom chased him down and forced him into marriage. He eventually abandoned Emily and the baby, and when he tried to divorce her, he claimed that she had mentally abused him. After Grandpa passed away, my parents took care of Emily and her child. When I came back home, I found that it was mostly Mom taking care of the baby while Emily was off and out. Sometimes, Dad would get upset with Emily for leaving her child with Mom, but Mom defended her, saying Emily was busy trying to find a job. The truth was, I saw Emily hanging out at cafes and parks with boys instead. She dropped out of school and couldn't find a decent job. I didn't care much, but Emily kept asking Mom for money to start her own business. My parents gave her the money without even asking me. Up until then, I didn't know what to do to get the $75,000 Grandpa left for me, except ask my parents. So, when I asked again and they refused, I said I would sue them for breaking Grandpa's will. Their faces went pale. They realized I was no longer the helpless girl they could control. After moving back home, I had started standing up for myself, and they couldn't handle it. Mom even made a list of the money they'd spent on me over the years. She said I owed them $200,000, and told me to forget about the $75,000. I was shocked and furious. We got into a heated argument, and I stormed out of the house. I went to Grandpa's house, where my uncle now lived, and asked for Grandpa's lawyer's contact. I explained the situation, and he told me that I was entitled to the $75,000 and that he would send an official notice to my parents. If they didn't pay up, I could sue them. It was a huge relief to hear that help was coming. The notice will arrive in a week, but I'm worried about how my parents will react. Update 2. I just wanted to share a quick update. You guys were right. My parents are going to be furious. I mentally prepared myself for what was coming. I spoke to my friend about sharing a condo, and I got a part-time job at a cafe. The pay isn't great, but they let me eat some leftover food at the end of the day. I had already packed my things before the notice arrived. As expected, when my mom got the notice from the lawyer, she kicked me out. She yelled at me and threw my stuff out. She called me a snake, saying I had been living off their money while planning to turn on them. I yelled back, saying they had left me with no choice. I can't ruin my life because of their narcissism. The lawyer gave my parents a month to respond to the notice. If they don't, they'll be in breach. Emily called me and blamed me for making life hard for the family. She said my parents weren't going to give me anything, and I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't have the money to sue them. I didn't tell her my plans. I just listened to her and then hung up. I told my lawyer about the call, and he said that we can definitely sue them if they don't respond by next week. Update 3. The backlash from my parents was severe when I went through with the lawsuit. I didn't want to press charges, but they didn't leave me any other choice. They ignored the lawyer's notice, so I went home to give them one last chance to comply with Grandpa's will. Instead, they ganged up on me, insulted me, and my mom even broke some of my belongings to hurt me. I was trying to resolve the issue without going to court, but it seemed like they wanted to escalate things. I told my lawyer to press charges, and he did. When they received the court order, Dad panicked. He called me and said we could handle things without the legal battle, but I reminded him that they were the ones who made it necessary. The court ordered Dad to pay $75,000 as per Grandpa's will, but he claimed he didn't have the money all at once. Instead, he offered to pay $10,000 a month. My lawyer argued that it wouldn't be enough to cover my tuition and living expenses, so the court ruled that Dad would pay my tuition, accommodation, and food until the $75,000 was met. If I exceeded that amount, I'd be on my own. It wasn't ideal, but I had no other choice. Dad pleaded with me, teary-eyed, promising he wouldn't default on the payments, so I agreed, but I made it clear that if he or Mom caused any trouble in the future, I would sue them again for mental distress. Meanwhile, Mom and Emily have been spreading rumors about me, saying I caused Dad stress by taking the family to court. It's ironic, since there was no shame when Emily got pregnant, but I'm the one bringing shame for asking for what was rightfully mine. I don't care anymore. If they want to label me the black sheep, so be it. Update 4. it's been a while since my last update, and a lot has changed. I've settled into college and have been focusing on my studies. I graduated high school with top grades and sent invitations to my parents for the ceremony, knowing they wouldn't attend. But surprisingly, Dad showed up. For the first time, he said he was proud of me. It took him a court case and 18 years to recognize me as his daughter, but I've moved on from that now. I've quit my job at the cafe and moved into the college dorm. Dad's court-ordered payments are covering my tuition, accommodation, and food, but I'm managing the rest on my own. I've taken up a part-time job on campus and also tutor classmates in math to earn some extra money. I'm doing well and feel independent. As for my relationship with Dad, it's better than before, but he wasn't always there for me. He saw everything happening to me but chose to ignore it. He supported Mom's decisions, even when they were hurtful. I don't know exactly how he reacted to Emily's pregnancy, but I do know that he didn't take a stand when things were falling apart at home. I'm living the life I've always wanted, focused on my education and thriving on my own. As for Mom and Emily, they're still gossiping about me. Emily got into trouble with the police for running an illegal gambling operation under the guise of a gaming parlor. When it was busted, my parents used the little money they had left to bail her out. She's now left with nothing, and I can't say I feel sorry for her. After the police incident, Dad finally kicked Emily out of the house. Mom tried to defend her, but Dad made it clear it was either him or Emily. Mom, who doesn't work, chose Dad, and Emily had to move out. I've heard that Emily's trying to emotionally manipulate Dad with her child, but he's not falling for it anymore. She's now living with a friend, but I don't know how long that will last. As for me, I'm focused on my future, and I'm not going to let anyone hold me back. Emily hasn't contacted me for help, and I'm fine with that. After everything she and Mom put me through, she can stay away. Story 2, ex-wife cheated on me with Mr. Romantic. Now she's broke, drowning in debt from the lavish dream wedding I never gave her, and has the nerve to ask me for money. I, 49, male, met my ex-wife, 49, female, when we were in our mid-20s. We started as friends, then dated for a year before deciding to get married. She wanted a huge wedding, but I didn't see the point in spending a fortune on one day, so I convinced her to have a small, intimate ceremony. It seemed fine at first, but I could sense the resentment growing over time. My suggestion was that we could renew our vows later and have the dream wedding she wanted, but I'm not sure that was ever enough to settle her discontent. Over the years, I tried to keep the romance alive, even if I wasn't the most romantic guy. We didn't have kids, so there wasn't that added pressure, but things had been growing stale for a while. By the time we were in our 40s, the marriage felt like it was stuck in a rut. I planned a romantic evening to try to reignite the spark, but it fell apart when she didn't come home one night. She told me she was at a friend's house, but I later found out she was lying. The lies continued, and after reaching out to her friends who covered for her, I finally confronted her. She admitted to cheating, and I was in shock. It turned out she had been seeing someone else for some time, a guy who was everything I wasn't: romantic, spontaneous, and attentive. She claimed that our marriage ended the night she cheated, and we started the divorce process. The divorce was amicable. We sold the house and split everything evenly, with both of us moving on with our lives. I bought a condo and saved the remaining money as a nest egg. My ex, however, used her portion to buy a bigger house, and then I heard she was planning the lavish wedding she had always dreamed of, one that she never had with me. It was clear she had been bitter all those years, resenting me for not giving her the wedding she wanted, and now, she was finally getting what she had always hoped for, but at what cost? But here's where the story takes a turn. She went into debt to fund this dream wedding, borrowing money to create the life she envisioned with her new partner. When things didn't go as planned, she ended up broke, and now, she has the audacity to ask me for money. I couldn't believe it. After all that had happened, after everything she put me through, she had the nerve to reach out to me for financial help. I'm no longer that person who would bend over backwards to appease her. If she wants to keep chasing her dreams, she'll have to find another way to fund them. I feel no obligation to help her. In fact, a small part of me finds some satisfaction in seeing her deal with the consequences of her choices. Maybe she'll finally learn that money and extravagant weddings aren't the key to happiness. As embarrassing as it is to admit, I did end up looking at the pictures on Facebook later, and wow, it was a massive event. Everything looked so fancy and expensive. I can only imagine how much she spent on the wedding. including the dress. That was when I realized I needed to stop obsessing over my ex. I started focusing more on spending time with my friends and family, which really helped me move on. I thought my ex was living happily with her new partner, but a year after their wedding, I found out things weren't so great. She had spent all her divorce settlement on the big house and expensive wedding, leaving her broke. Her job paid well, but she was the only one bringing in money, while her partner wasn't contributing at all. She actually reached out to me, asking if I could lend her some money. She tried to play on our past, bringing up the years we spent together, but I wasn't falling for it. I told her it wasn't my fault she wasted all her money on things that didn't matter. Then, I hung up on her. She called me at least 3 more times that night, and left 3 nasty voicemails. After listening to them, I just laughed and showed them to my friends. We all found it hilarious. My ex had no shame, or maybe she was just desperate. I don't know if she truly thought I would help her, but I wasn't going to. Even if she had asked me for money a few months earlier, I still wouldn't have given it to her. I wasn't desperate for her, and I never would be. I blocked her number that night because I didn't want to hear from her again. We were done. She had cheated and chosen to be with her new partner, so she could deal with her own mess. If she had been smarter with her money, she wouldn't be in this situation, just like I wasn't. Most of my family and friends were glad to see her go. I sometimes wonder if they ever really liked her or just tolerated her for my sake. It didn't matter anymore, though. She was a part of my past, and that's where she was staying.